Hi everybody, my name is Sam Amir Ibrahimi and I'm the developer and community relations lead for Here Technologies in Oceania. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to take you through some of the Here location APIs and SDKs that we are offering as part of the Hack for Future virtual hackathon in 2020 in Australia. Without further ado, let's get into the content of this presentation. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to give you a bit of background about who Here Technologies is, and afterwards I'm going to take you through the suite of APIs and SDKs that we have, and give you some examples and talk a little bit about each of those APIs that you can use to build your solution as part of this virtual hackathon. I wouldn't blame you if you don't know who Here Technologies is, but I'm sure like you've been using our location services in the background, whether you're ordering something online and it's being shipped to you. In the background, in the supply chain, like the companies are using our Here services, or if you're using your in-car navigation system to take you from point A to B, probably in the background you're using our services. Well, the company used to be called Navigation Technologies, or Navtech in short, and it was established in 1985. And then we rebranded, and we were taken over by Nokia in 2008, and we became Nokia Maps. Again, once Nokia sold its business to the phone business to Microsoft, and we as the location part of the company, we got rebranded into Here in 2012, and in 2015 we got taken over by a consortium of automotive companies like BMW, Audi, Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, and so on and so forth. And in 2017 and 18, a bunch of other tech companies like Intel, Bosch, Pioneer, Continental, and others invested even more in this company and became the part of the consortium. And finally, in 2020, we got more investors like Mitsubishi Corporation, and also the NTT Data even invested further in the company. And now we're called Here Technologies. And we've been the #1 location platform company in the world in the past consecutive years. I'll get back to it in a second. Just a little bit of stats about like how we're doing. We have mapped over 200 countries around the world, and we've got over 9,000 employees in 56 offices, and that we have in 56 countries. Our in-car our maps are on board of over 100 million vehicles around the world at the moment, and that number is increasing. And just to give you an idea, how many cars is that? Like 4 out of 5 in-car navigation systems in Europe and North America alone use our maps in the background. We have a fleet of cars that are constantly going out and collecting information, whether like a 3D sort of point cloud of the cities and the physical world, or like capturing imagery and so on and so forth. And we got 400 of them on roads, and they're going around and collecting over 28 terabytes of map data, constantly coming back to us, and all of that is fed into our maps to improve the quality, and so our consumers and their clients benefit from them in their business and in their daily lives. And as I mentioned, we have been #1 in the world, and we've been outranking Google Maps, Mapbox, TomTom, Apple, OpenStreetMaps, and all the well-known mapping company names that are out there. And as you can see here, this is a screenshot from an independent report that are comparing all these map making companies, and we've been number one, as you can see, in terms of the quality and the completeness of the map. And we're pretty much shoulder to shoulder some of the really big names in the industry, like Google Maps, that like their reach and into the consumer market has been very good, and you're very aware of it. Um, and this is just a snapshot of some of the companies that we've been working with in the past few decades, and we're continuously working with them. And like, as you can see, you can probably recognize some of these brands, and you're using them as well. Without further ado, let me just take you quickly through the suite of APIs and offerings that we have provided as part of this virtual hackathon. As I will come back to it, all of these things that I'm going to talk to you about, they're accessible free of charge for you. All you need to do is like to go to our developer portal and sign up for a freemium account, and that probably takes you 2 minutes to do that. So I just wanted to put that, bring it to your attention in the beginning, so you can just listen and then go back and learn more about these offerings and use them within your projects, hopefully. We have interactive maps, geovisualization services. With the maps, you have access to online interactive maps that you can customize them in terms of colors, styles, and you can change the labels, you can remove certain features. It's totally up to you that you can use these maps for the presentation in your applications. And with the geovisualization, I can give you the example of these services. Let's say creating a heat map of geographic features, or like points of interest like cafes and restaurants. If you want to visualize the density of these features in certain areas, you can quickly pass on that your raw data and create a heat map and visualize it on maps. We also have APIs to access places, points of interest like cafes, restaurants, and other places, landmarks, and so on and so forth. And you can search these. Let's say I want to find the cafes within 500 meters of my location. You can submit that query through an API, and you will get the results pretty much instantly. We have also autocomplete services. As you're typing the name, of a points of interest, a landmark, or generally any place, it will provide some suggestions for you. So it will help the user to identify what they're after. The other service that we are offering is called Geocoding, and there's another one called reverse geocoding. Geocoding is a service that you pass on an address, let's say 87 John Street in Richmond in Melbourne, and it will parses that information and returns to you a latitude and longitude coordinate that you can use to pinpoint that address on a map. And in contrast, the reverse geocoding does the reverse. So it takes a coordinate and it will translate it to possible addresses that it can match. For example, you can give it a coordinate, and it will tell you that what address it corresponds to. We have live traffic APIs that you can use to build cool applications. For example, if you're using some of our APIs that you want to deliver goods, you can use this traffic API to calculate the delays or suggest an alternative route. And on top of the traffic, you will have access to road incidents data. For example, road blockages, construction sites, and pretty much accidents and things that are happening in a road that are causing traffic disruptions. We also offer routing and navigation, and so you can use these services to navigate from one point to the other, or from one point to multiple destinations, and it does the calculations behind the scene. And not only it gives you the geometry, the lines that you need to traverse from one place to the other, but also it can provide you with human readable instructions. For example, go for one street, go for 100 meters, turn left, and then turn right, and so on and so forth. We also have fleet telematics services, which I will talk to you in more details. For example, we have geofencing, which you can define an area on a map, and as you're tracking certain assets or the cars or your bicycle as you're going, as soon as your asset enters that defined area, it triggers a function or sends a message, or it depends on what you want to do once that asset enters that area. So that has a lot of different applications. Let's say for emergency response or disaster management, if there's an incident zone, and if certain people enter that area, you can text them and say like, hey, this is a dangerous area, please get out and go to safety. We have traffic tracking APIs, which I will get back to it shortly. A very comprehensive weather API. We also have transit APIs that you can access public transport timetables and intermodal, let's say, transportation. For example, if you're going from point A to B, you can define the navigation to take you through, you can use cars in addition to public transport or bicycle, and it gives you the full spectrum sort of navigation instructions that you probably have used on a daily basis before. We have advertising data services, we have indoor venues maps, and a bunch of other APIs that I'll get back to you about shortly. So in terms of the interactive map APIs, you can access these and put a map in your web application or mobile application. And let me just tell you that we do have REST APIs as well as JavaScript APIs for web applications. To some extent, we do have a Python sort of functions to access these maps as well. And we've got support for both iOS and Android SDKs for you to build mobile applications as well. So online interactive maps, or you can access to an image of a certain area on the map, and you can customize your maps as well. Let me just show you an example. This is a map that it's a Here Technologies normal map, we call it, and you can define a sort of a file that contains the styling and coloring of all the features on the map, and pass it on to your piece of code that want to visualize the map, and customize that style file, and then you will be able to see the difference. For example, any underground sort of tunnel on the map, I changed the color to black, and as you can see here, it is showing it as well. There are many examples on our developer portal that you can use for your project, and I highly encourage you to pay a visit for map customization page, and use that for your project. The weather API, it's not necessarily an API that gives you it's sunny or cloudy or part cloudy, but it gives you heaps of information based on the coordinates or the city name that you provide to that API. This is just a simple REST API call, as you can see here, and you can access to hourly forecast, daily forecast, and forecast for the next 7 to 14 days, and it gives you whole heaps of information like the comfort level, temperature, rainfall, snowfall, humidity, wind speed, the wind direction, and so on and so forth. And you can use this within your application. Also, we provide embedded interactive venue maps that you can, for example, if you have a map of a shopping mall, you can create that map and embed it in an online interactive map like the one that is on the screen, and use that for a variety of applications. For example, seamless indoor-outdoor navigation, or if someone's just looking for, let's say, H&M shop in this area, and you can visualize it on your map for you to direct them. As I mentioned, we provide two geocoding APIs, forward and reverse geocoding, which I explained to you earlier. And there are a bunch of others like places and points of interest APIs. We've got about 55 million named and categorized places in 237 countries. So, and it's constantly being updated, and these information are amongst the highest quality points of interest data in the world. This is just a sort of an example, which let me see if I can show it to you. Okay, my computer is a bit slow. I hope you guys can see this. So this is just a sort of an example of the search suggestion, and it's looking for Berlin as a query, and it's basically suggesting like what where Berlins are located. For example, there's a Berlin in Germany, and there's Berlin something in Berlin as well. I'm just gonna search for, let's say, Starbucks, and let's see what it returns. So there are all these different Starbucks in that coordinate, around that coordinate that we provided. So like there's a Starbucks in this area in Berlin, in this area in Berlin, and so on and so forth. So you can quickly use this REST API to get all the relevant points of interest that you have, that you're after, and use them within your application. And once you do that, you can pass on that information to create a heat map of the location of these places. For example, this is a heat map of all the restaurants that are located within somewhere in Germany. Pretty cool, huh? And this is just a visual example of the geocoder that I mentioned to you. As you can see, I mentioned about, I specified Amsterdam Street in Richmond in Victoria, and it dropped a point on that particular location. And it's as simple as that. And it's one line of REST API, and you can grab the coordinates and use it within your application. And the simplest use case that you can think of is to use it on your website or your web application. It's like, this is my business address, and you can quickly create a map right next to that address and locate your business's location on that map. And using the geocoder, you can also access certain admin boundaries. For example, you're after Queensland or Victoria or suburbs like Richmond or any city of Melbourne, and you can quickly access the local boundaries and visualize them on the map. And as you can see here, this is one of the suburbs that we wanted to look at in Fiji. In terms of routing and navigation, that's the core of our business, and we have car navigation, pedestrian routing, and we've got cycling sort of routing, truck routing, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, as I'll show it to you in a second, these different modes of transport may have different parameters that you can use to get the right sort of route between your origin and destination points. You can enable traffic or you can disable it. It depends on your preference. You can access the shortest path, the balanced path, or the quickest ones in terms of time of travel. As I mentioned to you, we have intermodal routing that from point A to B, you not only want to drive, but you want to park in a park and ride area and take the, like, let's say, bus or the train to your destination, and you can use here service, and it's a simple service to calculate that route, and you will get heaps of information about like, let's say, the next train, or that public transit sort of timetable as well. You will have access to real-time and historical traffic. However, the historical traffic is not a free service. I correct myself here, so don't worry about it. And if you're using mobile application, you can access offline routing in case you don't want to use internet connection, or there's an area that you don't have internet connection and you're building an application to use routing service. You can use offline routing. We have isoline routing. It's one of my favorites, and I will show it to you in a second. That you can calculate the areas along the road network that you can access from certain points based on the distance of travel or certain duration of travel. If you don't understand it, I'll have a visual sort of presentation of this API shortly for you. And we have a matrix routing, which is a simple concept, but a lot of things are happening behind the scene. So you can calculate the duration and distance of travel between one point to the other, or from multiple origins to multiple destinations, and it gives you the matrix, a matrix that you can see all of that information. This is a visual representation of just a simple routing API call. You can visualize it on a map or use it for all sorts of other functions, like if you want to use voice enabled sort of navigation, you can use certain information within the output of this API to help the person just hear it. Like, for example, to go straight, turn left at that junction, and keep going straight until you get to your destination. And you can style it on the map to show the direction of travel as well, which is pretty handy. As I mentioned, truck routing probably is going to be more complex because trucks are different than normal cars in terms of the size. They can be very, very long, or they can go really high, and it's not very uncommon, and trucks often get stuck at certain overpasses, and they hit some of the bridges because they thought that they would go on pass through, but their height was exceeding the limit, and they hit the underneath of the like a overpass or a bridge. So with here advanced truck routing, you can specify all the different attributes for your truck instead, like in terms of the height, width, length, and whether you're carrying hazardous goods and materials to for this service to calculate a safe route. For example, if you're carrying hazardous materials, you may want to avoid routes near water, schools, or sensitive areas. At the same time, you can also specify whether you want to pass through toll roads or you don't want to, whether that truck is boat or ferry friendly, or can get on those boats, whether you want to go in like through the tunnels or so on and so forth. And you can specify all sorts of combination of these parameters to calculate a proper route. Yeah, this is a sort of a visual way of showing traffic, the traffic data that I was talking about earlier, and these points are all the incidents or roadworks or anything else that is happening on the roads. So you will have free access to all of this information when you're calling that service. And this is an example of the matrix routing that I mentioned to you earlier. So there are like a bunch of points, and from each to another, the distance and the duration of travel is calculated. And so this is a visual representation of that, but you will be able to access this information in the XML or GeoJSON, JSON or GeoJSON formats. And these are some of the examples of isolines or isochrones. So for example, from the middle of these like concentric polygons, we wanted to calculate how far we can go within the on the road network for 5 minutes of driving, 10 minutes of driving, and 15 minutes of driving. And as you can see, these are the polygons generated for each of those API calls. And you can, once you capture that, you can extract the road network for that area and basically work with that part of the network alone, rather than just using the entire road network for to basically optimize the time of like processing time or your processing resources. So we have another suite of APIs for fleet telematics. And as I mentioned to you, we have custom locations that you can add to the map and use them to along our other data to run queries on. We have geofencing, we have advanced data sets, we have waypoint sequence that you pass on a bunch of points on the map, like or locations, and it will the service will calculate the most optimum route in terms of whether it's the distance or the time of travel to go through all of those. And the simplest use case that I can think of is a delivery service. And you have, for example, an Uber Eats sort of driver. He has picked up like 3 deliveries, and he wants to deliver all of them in the shortest time possible. So they can use this service, and it will give them the route. And you can calculate the toll cost based on certain routes, route matching, custom routes, and other services within this are some of the examples of the services within this category. So this is a geofencing one that I mentioned. Probably I didn't mention it. Geofencing is something called it's a service that you define an area, and that asset, if that asset gets within any of these polygons or the routes, it will trigger a message or a function that you can use in other part of your application. You will have access to speed limits on the roads and the street signs, as you can see here, and visualize them on the map, or you can use them in the behind the scene as the driver or your user is interacting with your application, whatever use case that you want to support. You can use this information. You also will be able to access the road slopes, and for example, if you have an electric vehicle, all these slopes matter because it affects your battery consumption. If you're going on a steep road, you need more energy, and it affects your consumption. So and it's also useful for road safety, like for example design, or calculating like how safe these roads are during the summer or winter, or and so on. As I mentioned to you, this is the multiple destination routing, or waypoint sequence. These are some of the points that are passed on to the service, and you can and as you can see, this is the most optimum route in terms of time. The mode of transport is not driving, it's pedestrian. So this is like a walking route to cover all these in the shortest path. So, and you also have access to routing with toll cost. For example, you pass on a route, and behind the scene it does the calculation if any of these roads you need to pay the toll for. So and it calculates the overall cost as well as the breakdown of the tolls that you have to pay. We also have other fundamental services for like matching GPS trace to road and maximum road speed. For example, if you're tracking an asset, or you're using your mobile device to record your route, the GPS accuracy changes as you're going, and some of these points won't end up on the map. As you can see, the black and red ones are the ones that are recorded, and have a look. Some of them are close to the road that you're moving on. Some of them are very far. And using this matching service, it gives you the actual route that you were traveling on. So you can use that for all sorts of calculations that you can have. And the other thing is the maximum road speed. And as you can see here, this sort of there's a certain speed limit for this road, and also you can get the maximum safe road speed that you can go on, and you can either visualize it or use it in the background to do other calculations. We have platforms called Here Locate or Here Tracker that you can register your certain device, your own mobile phone or other devices, your Internet of Thing devices, and then you will be able to track those devices and use it within your application. And if you don't have a sort of a tracking device, this is something that one of our partners provide, which probably you're not going to be able to access it within your hackathon, but just to put it out there. So these were some of the examples of our APIs and functionalities that you can access through our mobile SDKs for both iOS and Android systems. To get more information, please visit her.is/devs, and that will take you to our developer portal that you can create an account and explore all heaps of things about from information about products and the APIs and SDKs that I mentioned to you earlier, documentations, examples, tutorials, and whole heaps of other things. Don't worry about the pricing. You'll have access to our freemium APIs, which will give you 250,000 API transactions a month for free. and at the end of the month, it gets reset, and you get a new 250,000 transactions for your next month. And in terms of the usage for mobile devices, your SDKs will support 5,000 active users per month, free of charge as well. So this probably will give you enough flexibility to scalable applications. And I would love to see what you can do, what you will do and build as part of this hackathon and using our APIs. So by that, I'm gonna end this session. And if you have any questions or you want to get in touch with me, I'll be on the platform, and I'll be mentoring during the hackathon. But if you want to contact me, here's my email address. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have questions or any inquiries. Thank you very much. All the best for the hackathon, and I look forward to see what you build using our services. Thank you. See you soon.